Welcome to follow our series of podcast of Scaffdex and RegJoint anniversary year 2026. My name is Tiia Annala and I'm a sales secretary at Scaffdex. I have a pleasure to introduce our podcast guest, Minttu Levoranta, who will be giving us an insight from patient's perspective. So, warmly welcome. We're very happy to have you here. Could you say who you are and where are you coming from?
Yes, so as you said, I'm Minttu Levoranta, and I'm originally from Tyrvää, which is located like 60 kilometers from Tampere. And I've been living in Tampere since '86 or something like that, when I came to study here. I have a family, husband and two children who are actually moved away already. So they are studying. Another one, our son, is in Tampere area, and he visits home quite often. I lure him with food, so he comes to dinner quite often. But my daughter is in Turku, so we don't meet that often anymore.
Okay, so that's your current situation and family background. I would be curious to know what is then your connection to RegJoint or Scaffdex Oy?
Actually, I met Tuija when I started my studies here somewhere in late 80s. So we've been friends ever since. And then, of course, I learned when Tuija was doing the work, then I learned that she's also doing these implants. And that's how I got to know the RegJoint and Scaffdex.
Right, and RegJoint is our biosoluble small joint implant, which can be then indicated in the joints in hands and in feet. Could you then share a bit more about your background life and maybe perhaps some important hobbies of yours?
Yes. As I said, I like to cook, especially during the weekends. That's a hobby of mine, so I always try to do something new. And then also I do some Ashtanga yoga at home nowadays. Earlier I went to the classes, but now it's not so often. And my most important hobby is the horseback riding. And with my husband, we like to travel. And when we are doing vacation or staycations or long weekends, we walk a lot because we like to explore the city by foot, because then you see most, and then visit a lot of museums. So we are a lot on foot.
Right, sounds quite active.
Yes, yeah, I try to keep myself active.
Great. Okay, so active way of living, these hobbies, what you mentioned, horseback riding, that's something extraordinary, I'd say. Would you say something about that?
Yes, well, I've been riding since I was a little kid. First with a farm horse, and then later on with a riding school. And actually, the horseback riding is probably the reason why what happened to my toe. Because when you are in the stables, horses are quite big animals, and they can be sometimes a little bit clumsy. And I was grooming one mare that was really big one, and she accidentally stepped on my toe. And she kept her weight on my toes because she didn't realize that she has stepped on it. So I was just standing next to her and trying to push these 800 kilos away from my my foot, and it took quite a while before she realized that okay, she's trying to do something. And of course it hurt really much, but of course it was just, it's a regular thing when you are in riding. Things happen, you fall, you kick your leg or whatever. So I didn't think that much of it. And later on, let's say like 3 months later, when it was almost healed, I kicked it on the doorstep, and
Okay.
I guess it fractured maybe, and it was sore again for quite some time. But that was, quite a long time ago, so I didn't pay much attention to it. But I think that that's probably, or could be, one of the reasons why the right toe needed this operation and my left is still fine.
Right. when you had this horse accident, well, I would say maybe to have 800 kilos on your foot, that is not something that might usually happen. But as you said, with riding, things can happen. Was it then okay in a bit, or you said that then you hit it again? But what happened at that time? It got recovered, or it healed a bit?
Yeah, it kind of healed.
Oh.
Yeah, enough, to not affect the everyday life so much. So I managed.
Okay, right. Then what were the more significant signs of that? Okay, something wasn't right, or as you said, the left has been okay, and then with this kind of accident or occasion has been on the right one. But what then took a turn that you noticed, like, okay, now it's getting even worse?
About 4 or 5 years, it started to get worse and worse. And it really affected my life in a way that towards the end, I wasn't able to, go shopping shoes that would look nice. The only thing was that the shoe that would fit the foot and I would be able to walk with. So, like it was, I just went there. And if, of course, affected on my riding, because on the riding, when you are in the saddle, you have a stirrups, and when you are, especially in the trot, you should have the balance evenly between your toes. And since this one, let's say this is the big toe, was hurting, so I was tilting towards the smaller toes. So then the leg position was incorrect, and of course it affected on the seat in the saddle. And then the thing that really wakened me up that I really need to do something now is that when I was working with a customer in a project, and it was, let's say, some September, October, November, when it was dark outside, and there was a very long corridor when there was a window at the end of the corridor, and the corridor was lit and the negotiation rooms were along it. And I was walking on the corridor towards the last negotiation room, and then I all of a sudden realized that, hey, I can see my image from the window. And then I kept walking, and then I realized that what is my right leg doing? So left was walking normally, and with the right one, I did some really weird stuff that I didn't even realize it before seeing it. So that was, like the wake-up call that I really have to do something.
Right. So okay. So it had gotten to a point that already you had adopted your way of walking. I'm gonna guess that maybe you had also pain, or that you might have been avoiding certain stuff.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you thought, okay, now this cannot continue. It cannot go no longer like this. So what did you then? Well, I'm gonna guess you had the negotiation happen. Then maybe you limped back, and then which kind of medical help did you then seek for this condition?
Yeah. So that was something that I really realized that, okay, I have to do something. And of course, at that time, it affected my knee. So my knee hurt and my hip. I started to have hip pains, and that was something. Finally, in February 2017, I got the occupational healthcare system, and I went there and I got a referral to the public healthcare for this condition.
Okay, and was it clear that you contacted the occupational healthcare provider, and they referred you to the public one, and then who did you meet? Which kind of treatment path took from that moment on?
Yeah. So yes, I with occupational health, I asked them to to get me further because of course they could also see that she's not walking properly. And I got an appointment with an orthopedian. It was just before midsummer that I finally got to meet her, and of course she also saw that she asked me to walk. And of course, she saw right away that there is a lot of things wrong. And also the toe at that time wasn't moving at all, basically. So it was so stiff. And it had been stiff for maybe a year or two or something like that.
Okay, for a while. Right. Okay, so then you met up with this person or with the orthopedic surgeon before midsummer, and then the operation was scheduled.
Yeah.
From that moment.
She suggested, of course, first the fusion.
Which is a common treatment, especially in these cases with big toes.
Yes, and since I knew about this RegJoint, because I knew Tuija, so and I knew that they have this implant that would be really good for my condition and for my toe, so I asked that would it be possible to, instead of this fusion, would it be possible to have this instead? And she agreed. So that was really good.
Right, that's fantastic, of course, to hear that whenever the patient is asking or suggesting that, okay, I know that there's a different way of treating it.
Yeah, but that was 8 years ago, so it was quite new for the toes.
Right,
it had been done for the fingers,
yes,
but it was a little bit new maybe for the toes in that department.
Okay, and you were operated in Tampere in Hatanpää unit. All right. Right, so as mentioned, fusion is one treatment option, and then installing RegJoint is another one. I would like to know, like, based on what influenced your decision, beyond that you knew that, okay, your friend has been doing this implant, if we talk about like medical terms, or that what you would then hope later, like after recovery. So which aspects did affect your decision?
Well, I didn't want to have this fusion because that would have been so that, no high heel shoes ever, no riding well ever. Okay, well, I'm not riding so well now either, but still, like you can think about it. So it was something that I really didn't want because I hadn't heard so many good news about it. So, and since I knew that there is an option that I can really get it move again and be able to wear different kind of shoes and have yoga and roll over your toes when it's needed and all that. So that was something that I only considered. So I'm really glad that I got it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, as far as I understood, with the fusion, it just means that they are making it stiff for the lifetime, forever.
Yeah.
Fusion can be then done later if it's the only option for a painless condition. But as it turns out that with the RegJoint you can have the mobility, you can have the as pain-free as it would get, and you can continue doing the dearest hobbies and the active lifestyle what you had already beforehand. So very understandable that not to go with the fusion if there's an option for it.
Yeah, and this RegJoint suited me also because my toe was in the good line, so the position was good. So I guess that's also why the orthopedic said that, okay, let's do it with this RegJoint implant.
Okay, that's fantastic to hear. How would you then evaluate, or what would you say overall about your treatment path, or how it has been from the occupational health to get to the orthopedic surgeon to get it done, and what happened? Then you got the operation in August. What came after? What was after the operation? What happened?
Yes, after the operation I got physiotherapy. In the beginning it was every 2 weeks, and then later on monthly. And also I met the orthopedic on twice 2 weeks after the surgery to check that it looks good and the toes are positioned correctly. And also after 3 months when after the surgery, then just to check that everything is good, and also how mobile it is. So in the beginning of the first 2 weeks, it was just, painkillers because, of course, it was really sore. And I didn't do much exercises at that time. But when I went to the physiotherapist after the 2 weeks, then she gave me instructions that how can I activate it and how to walk correctly.
Right.
And first of all, I had to move it with my hands because the connection to the toe from the brain didn't work at all because it'd been stiff so long. So I was trying to lift it and nothing happens. So she gave me instructions that how can I manipulate it with my hands so I can get back the the nerve systems and the muscle memory and all that. And also the fact that I had waited so long because of my walking pattern was totally incorrect. She asked that I should wear the crutches so that when I'm walking at home, I really concentrate on the correct movement, so not to strain the toe at all, but have the most of the weight on the crutches, and then just have the correct movement to roll over the operated joint as well. And yeah, it was quite painful in the beginning. I've always had ice in the evenings to cool it, and after I had done some exercises, had some ice. But let's say after a month, it was pretty good already. And after 3 months, I would say that it was more or less painless. Right. During the during the days.
Yes,
but if I walk a lot, then of course in the evenings I could feel that it was still sore. Yep. Or would get sore, but it wouldn't be if I'm not moving, I wouldn't feel the pain as I would be sitting here.
Okay, and that's already I think the recovery has been then fantastic. It has been very good if that's the case, because maybe some people would have it, or depending on the conditions, they might have this through the pain throughout. So not related to the exercises, but to have pain all around.
Yeah, but let's say that after 6 months, I would say that exercising and then you get to go to on your toes and that. So after that, it was I would say that it was pretty good. Of course, it's never 100% what it was. If I compare it to the left one, which hasn't been operated, I would say that this is 87-90%.
Okay, and if you compare to the condition where you had not, you still didn't have the surgery, should you have continued with that? Would you say that condition was 30, 20%? That was a zero.
There was no way to continue life that.
With that, right?
Yes, yeah, okay. It had to be done.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, people who are listening to the podcast should maybe remember that this is a story, or this is experiences from one person. This is a one perspective, and as a manufacturer, we are not giving any rehabilitation programs, and we are only sharing the experiences, but we cannot guarantee how it's going to be for other individuals. So you were saying that it is as good as it would get. That compared to the left one, you would say it's something 80%, 80, 90%, as it is.
I would say. Yeah.
Okay, then I would be curious to know how long did it take that you could walk relatively normally after the operation, as you were saying that you had adopted this pattern of going to the side of the foot. So how long did it take that the walking was as normal as it would?
Yes, for the walking pattern, I had to concentrate for quite a long time. So I would say that the toe was already okay, but my walking was not so good. But I had a couple of shoes, some high heel shoes with a very strict bottom, so that they wouldn't be flexible at all. So I would have my leg in the same, or foot on the same position, and then I could roll over without having any effect on the joint. So with those shoes, actually, we went to a trip on the week 42 with kids, and we walked, 7 days in towns.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, quite a lot.
But of course, in the evenings, yeah, I had to have I would have my leg in the sink for to cool it down. So then it was a little bit painful, but that was that was like 3 months after the surgery, long distance walking. But I would say that it probably, to get the correct way of walking, I think that that's probably a year or something like that.
A year would sound quite realistic when you think about the full recovery. So to get the strength back and the mobility and to have it still pain free. This
Yeah.
Then, of course, as a lady, I would like to know when was the time that you could actually either wear high heels again and to get back to your dear hobbies.
I would say that for my dear hobbies, I probably got back earlier because there I don't have the high heels. The stirrups are okay, and you can ride a little bit lighter, like I did in the beginning. Because of course the teachers knew that I had the operation, so I could do some exercises a little bit different than the others. And for the high heels, I have to say that now I don't remember, but it was totally different. Yeah, maybe it was half a year after the operation, but it was a totally different thing to go to the shop when you could look some shoes and not only to think about what fits and what you can walk with, but can have heels.
The ones you would actually want to have.
Yeah.
That's great. And how does your foot feel at the moment?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, I have no pain. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost as good as this one. I mean, there are no pain, and I can wear I can wear as high heels as I want to, because at this age I can't wear any any really high heels anymore, because then it would be impossible to walk.
Great. And about horse riding, you're still doing it, you're still active, and you're still making some vacation staycations. So would it be correct to say that then the operated foot is not limiting, it's not bothering you in any kind of way, but actually it's as good as it would get?
Yes, yeah, I would say so. Yeah, the operation was 8 years ago, so it's been really good for several years. I don't remember, because it's been normal.
That's good to hear. Right. Then maybe now then could you evaluate, could you say something about the process of okay, you had an accident with a horse, and then years, decades later, you decided, okay, now it's getting to a point I cannot continue like this anymore, and you needed medical assistance and help to it. Till this point, about the whole process, was it smooth in your case, or could something be different in your opinion?
I think it went smoothly overall. Okay, there was some time between the occupational health referral to the orthopedian, and once I got the orthopedic time in the mid or before midsummer, and then the operation 3 months later. I think that was, and there was a summer in between, of course. So I think that it went quite smoothly.
Right, and then you got the physiotherapy afterwards.
Yes, yeah, directly. Yes, I think that was really good as well, and they really gave good instructions on how I should exercise, given the condition that it was a toe and the walking pattern that were affected.
Right. So, what would be your key points or a message to our listeners to remember from this podcast?
Yeah. First of all, I would say that don't wait as long as I did, because that was I think that was a really big mistake. That don't try to find time to go to the occupational health services or directly to the public health services, because of course I was thinking that I'm just busy and I don't have the right time and all that, but really it's not that time consuming in the end. And then the second point that I would say is that don't settle for the fusion. At least for me, that would not be the really good solution. So I think that this RegJoint implant that I got really worked for me. So I think that you should ask for that if it's not already suggested as a solution.
As a standard, right. I would like to thank you, Minttu Levoranta, for joining our podcast series.
Hey, thanks a lot. It's been my pleasure.
Lovely. And for our audience, check our other episodes online.